I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Tell these salty motherfuckers to tell the truth. Tell politicians to give up the rooms. Tell silent voters to stand up to the booth.
God, it's me. Can you hear my plea? Feeling like I'm lost in this world, can't you see? Demons creeping in, trying to take control of me. But I'm just trying to find the light, trying to break free. I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. But why you keep forgetting me? What did I do? Trying to have a convo, but you starting to preach. Feeling like I'm on a leash. Can't find no peace, find no peace. Living in hell, can't you hear my plea? I'm suffocating, can't you see? Why you let these false prophets roam free? While the well-run suffer, can't you see? I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Why you keep targeting me? What did I do? Trying to have a convo, but you starting to preach. Feel like I'm on a leash, can't find no peace.
Hardest battles, strongest soldiers, greatest burden, broadest shoulders, pushing up just like these boulders. See conflict like it's water, so this mercy, take my chalice, seeking grace through all this malice. All of these salty motherfuckers could give up.
Politics and sinners, they all the same.
Got me stuck in this endless game. But I won't give up,
won't play the role.
Gotta do what's
best for my soul.
I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Tell these salty motherfuckers to tell the truth. Tell these politicians to give up the room. Tell silent voters to stand up to the booth. Living wild but truthfully free. God keep on watching over me. Take my pleas and keep the...
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. And welcome to the Urban Conservative Podcast. And this morning, this episode is called The Hard Truth. Gun violence, corruption, and survival in Minnesota. But before we get into all that, you know how we play independent, music, artists. And this morning I got No Risk, No Reward, Don Tripp.
Okay, take your pick. I go chase my dreams, that's how I chase the check. Sometimes I chase my kids around the house, but I better not chase no bitch. Boy, this life don't come with no reward if you don't take no risks. And I'm so focused on making more dollars, shit don't make no sense. No, I told you help was on the way, but that shit came and went. Dust it off and get back on the field, we got a game to win. Ain't no way to trick me out my spot, look, but it's say your breath. We stop pointing pistols at your chest, it look like laser quest. I made it out the Memphis City streets, you should be proud of me. Paranoia still a part of me, which makes it hard to sleep. I took half my fortune to the range and bought an armory. I look in the mirror, see I'm everything I wanna be. I made it out the Memphis City streets, so many doubted me. I'm off the leash, you peep, I'm so locked in, you think I lost the key. Up again, niggas don't want you to win unless you cut them in. Niggas be acting supportive but hoping you fail. Now you can't trust your friends, damn. You gotta cut some ties now, you gotta wash your hands. Niggas be counting you out while counting your pockets, and you gotta watch your mans. I spend all my time inside my house, I don't come out. It's just me, my money, my guns, my lovely children, and my spouse. Hold up, ain't no slowing me down. Hold up, ain't no slowing me down. Might spend all night with my lady on the couch, but still don't lounge. Baby, I built this shit from the ground. My foundation is solid. You want a nigga to leave his house at home, then you better make a deposit. I can't justify my time away if I'm not making a profit. All I got in this world, my wife and kids, and baby, I'm crazy about them. I can't justify my time away if I'm not making a profit. All I got in this world, my wife and kids, and I'll go crazy about them. Okay, take your pick. I go chase my dreams, that's how I chase the check. Sometimes I chase my kids around the house, but I better not chase no bitch. Boy, this life don't come with no rewards if you don't take no risks. And I'm so focused on making more dollars, shit don't make no sense. Don't make no sense. Shit don't make no, yeah. I'm focused on making some, yeah. Shit don't make no, yeah.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Uh, I want to get into this morning, and this is something new for me. So this morning I was listening to, it's not new for me to listen to John Justice, but there is an ethics committee, and it's the complaint against Senator Nicole Mitchell. I think this is important for people to pay attention to. Um, because this is something that is facing Minnesota, right? This is something that Minnesota is going through, and this is something that people should pay attention to. So I want to play a little bit, probably like 30 minutes of it. I want to get into this ethics complaint against Senator Nicole Mitchell. You're going to see he should have a motherfucking complaint himself. Bobby Ho-ass champion. I mean, Joe. My bad. I shouldn't say Ho because it's Joe. Uh, but he should have his own ethics complaint as well. So, and that's Bobby Bobby Joe champion. With that being said, let's get into that complaint.
An amended complaint regarding the conduct of Senator Nicole Mitchell. The updated complaint contains new information, including the filing of an additional felony charge against Senator Mitchell. In addition to being charged with first-degree burglary, she has now also been charged with possession of burglary or theft tools, a felony. Furthermore, she has abused due process to delay any action by the Senate while her criminal trial proceeds, and then in turn has used her service in the Minnesota Senate to delay her criminal trial even longer. Let's first review the information regarding her actions on April 22nd, 2024. As it stands today,
now this is a sitting member of the Minnesota Senate.
Member of the Minnesota Senate facing not one, but now two felony charges associated with breaking into her stepmother's home. The new statement of probable cause filed by the criminal prosecutor is incredibly detailed and includes descriptions of where she was found, what she was wearing, and comments Senator Mitchell made both before and after being Mirandized and arrested. At approximately 4:45 a.m., Carol Mitchell, the homeowner and stepmother of Senator Mitchell, called 911 to report an intruder, saying, "I tripped over him. He was on the floor next to my bed. He ran downstairs in the basement." Responding officers arrived at the scene and reported finding Senator Mitchell in the basement of her stepmother's home, hiding in the bathroom. She had removed and hidden her shoes, potentially to mute the noise she would make while moving through the house. She was dressed in all black with a black hat and was carrying a flashlight she had covered with a black sock. A crowbar was found near a basement window. Senator Mitchell is charged with using this crowbar to break into her stepmother's home. While Senator Mitchell was being detained, she confirmed she was there to take things, saying, "Carol, it's Nicole. I was just trying to get a couple of my dad's things because you wouldn't talk to me anymore." Senator Mitchell told the officers, "There were just a couple of my dad's things I wanted to come and get." And as she was leaving, she told officers, "Well, obviously, I'm not good at this." She was read her Miranda warning, a warning that told her she had a right to remain silent, and she proceeded to keep talking to the officers. She said, "I'm just hoping this mistake won't completely F up my life," adding that, "I know I did something bad." She further told officers she'd literally just gotten into the house and again said, "Clearly, I am not good at this."
Our standards of ethical conduct in the Senate.
Will you identify yourself for the record?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric Lucero, Senator from District 30. Our standards of ethical conduct in the Senate dictate in Rule 56.1 that members must adhere to the highest standard of ethical conduct as embodied in the Minnesota Constitution, state law, and these rules. Senate Rule 56.3 declares, improper conduct includes conduct that violates a rule or administrative policy of the Senate, that violates accepted norms of Senate behavior, that betrays the public trust or that tends to bring the Senate into dishonor or disrepute. There is zero doubt these rules were violated by Senator Mitchell breaking into another person's home to take things that did not belong to her. She is facing not one, but two felony charges associated with this behavior. After her arrest, Senator Mitchell made a public post via her Facebook page. In the post, she claimed, quote, "Over the weekend, I learned of medical information which caused me grave concern and prompted me to check on that family member. I entered a home I have come and gone from countless times in the past 20 years, where my son even once had his own room. Unfortunately, I startled this close relative, exacerbating paranoia, and I was accused of stealing, which I absolutely deny," unquote. Senate Rule 56.2 states, "A member must not publish or distribute written material if the member knows or has reason to know that the material includes any statement that is false or clearly misleading, concerning a public policy issue or concerning the member's or another member's voting record or position on a public policy issue." Senator Mitchell's post does not align with the comments Senator Mitchell made to officers who arrested her. In Senator Mitchell's comments to officers, she admitted she was trying to take things that did not belong to her. Senator Mitchell implied to the public she was conducting a welfare check, even though she claimed to arresting officers she was there to get some things. Senator Mitchell was attempting to minimize the severity of her actions and was spinning an entirely new tale about why she had driven 3 hours in the middle of the night to enter her stepmother's home.
Finally, we'd like to address the delays that have followed the criminal case and the proceedings of this Ethics Committee. Senator Mitchell last spring was able to persuade the committee to delay a decision while her criminal trial proceeded. Throughout the summer and fall last year, Senator Mitchell's defense team exchanged filings and motions with prosecutors. In June of 2024, the defense team requested a delay due to a scheduling conflict. The legal teams exchanged evidence and witness lists. The filings dragged on until the court case was scheduled for January of 2025. Then, on January 10th, 2025, just days before the legislative session would begin, Senator Mitchell's legal team chose to assert Minnesota Statute 3.16, which allows legislators to delay trials until after session. As a result, Senator Mitchell has abused due process to first delay the Senate Ethics Committee from considering any information, then turning right around and using her privilege as an elected official to delay her criminal trial.
Wow.
These delays have kept a dark cloud over the Minnesota Senate and failed to deliver justice for the real victim in this case, her stepmother, Carol Mitchell.
This deliberate abuse of due process clearly constitutes a violation of Senate Rule 56.3, which states, "Improper conduct includes conduct that violates a rule or administrative policy of the Senate, that violates accepted norms of Senate behavior, that betrays the public trust, or that tends to bring the Senate into dishonor or disrepute." The public cannot use their jobs to evade justice and avoid accountability. Moreover, working Minnesotans cannot leverage a criminal trial to prevent their employers from holding them accountable. Due process is important. However, Senator Mitchell has blatantly abused due process attempting to avoid accountability.
Right.
Lost in the flurry of legal filings and committee hearings is Carol Mitchell. Carol Mitchell is the true victim here. In the middle of the night, she had her home she had lived in for decades broken into, her safety and security completely violated, and now Carol Mitchell is unable to obtain closure because the criminal trial has been drawn out and delayed yet again.
Wow. Right.
While Senator Mitchell is entitled to due process in her criminal case, The Senate should not be complicit in delaying due process. The Senate must take action now with the information we have. If Senator Mitchell wants the truth to be known to this committee, she is welcome to do so here today. This committee has the information necessary to conclude the Senate standards of ethical conduct have indeed been violated. We know breaking into another person's home is not adhering to the highest standard of ethical conduct. We know it's not a norm of Senate behavior to attempt to take belongings in secret from another person's home. We know sharing information that is false or intentionally misleading violates the public trust. We know the abuse of due process brings this body into dishonor and disrepute. This Senate Ethics Committee must act now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you to the testifiers. Thank you for your testimony. Now we will go to questions. Any questions from the committee? Any questions? Oh, Senator. And Senator Mitchell, you can come to the table as well, because under the rules, you have a right to ask questions if you want to as well. Okay? Okay, thank you. Any questions for the testifiers? Couple questions. Senator, and you all can decide which person is going to answer. Have you all had an opportunity to read Rule 55, in particular Rule 55.11?
We have it in front of us, Mr. Chair.
And isn't it true that the subcommittee has the right to defer proceedings until the criminal proceeding has been completed? Is that your read of that, or is there
This shit
a
crazy.
way to interpret this?
Sticking for criminals.
It says
God damn, they
specifically, if
crazy.
criminal proceedings relating to the same conduct have begun, the subcommittee
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
you're reading, you said 55.11. I think you're reading 55.14.
No, I'm reading.
You have an old book, Mr. Chair?
You have an older book, Mr. Chair.
You don't have.
These niggas be cheating. Get the fuck out of here. Oh my God.
It's the old one.
Right. This is dumbass nigga. No wonder I call it. Fuck, I apologize for definitely
so
taking away my
55.14.
apology. Fuck that nigga.
Used to be 55.11.
Bum ass nigga.
If criminal
Crackhead
proceedings
ass
related
nigga.
to the same conduct have begun, the subcommittee may defer its proceedings under the criminal proceeding until the criminal proceedings have been completed. Is that your read of it? And do you agree that the subcommittee on ethical conduct, that we have the right to defer a proceeding until after the criminal proceedings have been resolved?
These niggas, I swear to God.
Mr. Chair, I
man.
do see the word may is indeed in 55.14, giving this committee the discretion to act.
And would you agree that prior to this complaint amending well, let me strike this. Let me say it a different way. Isn't it also true that the new added felony did not bring any new facts to the original petition that was filed April 22nd, 2024? Would you agree with that or not?
Mr. Chair, we would not agree with that. There are additional details that are included in the amended complaint.
And what are those additional details?
Among them, Mr. Chair, would be the
I don't like this shit. I don't like these. I don't know how we vote for these niggas, man. We vote for straight crooks.
including
That's why we get mad at drug dealers.
an account of a crowbar that was found at the scene. And go ahead.
Yep, Mr. Chair, yes. The crowbar that was found at the scene by the basement window, which was another felony, possession of burglary or theft tools, and then also information of that she was hiding in the bathroom, that she had hidden her shoes under a couch, and more of the details and descriptions of the scene. But the second felony with the crowbar.
And would you agree that if there was a thorough investigation of what was at the scene on the original day that this incident allegedly occurred, that any person who was investigating it would have seen if there was a crowbar at the scene and where her shoes were, where that would not constitute new evidence? Is that correct?
Nigga here.
Mr. Chair, we are not a court of law, and this isn't a criminal trial. We are the Senate Ethics Committee.
Right.
And we abide by our own rules. And as Senator Lucero said, we know that breaking into another person's home is not adhering to the highest standards of ethical conduct.
Come on,
Senator
Bobby.
Mitchell herself had said at the scene in the police report, it's documented, she knows she did something wrong. So
Right.
you can ask Senator Mitchell if she felt it was okay to be found in the middle of the night in her stepmother's basement hiding in the
She's not gonna
bathroom,
answer that.
if that adheres to our highest ethical standards.
And to anyone of the testifiers, if you're saying that this is what is represented in the complaint, because that is allegedly what happened at the scene,
Oh, allegedly.
are
I
you
hate that
also
fucking
willing
word
to
nowadays. I
concede
swear, dude.
that if there was a missing crowbar or a mysterious crowbar by a window, that would have been something highlighted and that the prosecutor had the opportunity
motherfucker
to
here.
review that and charge her back in April of 2024? Would you agree with that, or would you not agree with that?
Mr. Chair, I am not gonna, or we are not gonna delve into the decision-making of the criminal process, but we are before you today for an ethics process. And the
Right.
behavior
Thank you.
clearly demonstrates that Senator Mitchell has violated the ethical conduct standards of the Minnesota Senate.
And I think that you have been very thoughtful to suggest that there is a criminal proceeding, and that there are people who are in a better position than we are in order to determine and to
Oh,
adjudicate what
wow.
happened on that day or what
No,
didn't.
we ain't.
I'm not saying what happened because I don't know. That is why
I hate you.
this committee before wanted to wait until we got new information in order to see exactly what happened or did not happen on that day. And it appears to me that that is something that would be clarified after there is a trial. But before I go to the others, I have just one more question. Senator Housley, I think you mentioned that, can you just refresh my recollection, how many continuances did the defense ask for in these proceedings?
There was one in July of 2024 to delay it to June of 2024.
And would you agree that you did have an opportunity to read the judge's order when it came to the judge deciding if the delay or if the continuance should be granted? Did you have an opportunity to read the order?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And would you agree that on page 6 of that order that the judge wrote, quote, and you can read with me, first, the proposed length of delay is not unreasonable. The defendant requests to try this case after the legislative session concludes in May 2025. That is not an excessively long delay for a felony case that, delay for a felony case which is less than a year old. This is also the first request for a continuance in this matter. This case has not been unduly delayed or prolonged. And then he writes, second, the reason for the delay that the defendant wants to be able to represent her constituents during the legislative session. This is not an illegitimate reason to request a continuance, as it is specifically permitted by Minnesota Statute Section 316. So Senator Housley, you used the word unreasonable delay, and you used some other, terms. Would you agree that the judge is in the best position to decide if something is reasonable or not?
Mr. Chair, again, this isn't the court of law. This is our Senate Ethics Committee. And being delayed criminally isn't the same as being prolonged in ethics.
Senator Housley, I think you said that she unreasonably delayed her criminal proceeding. That's the only reason why I'm asking that question. I'm not trying to be provocative. And you all did include the order in your list of documents, so I thought I would read them and read from it. And so I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page, that when there's this wording around unreasonable delay, abusing delay, that is not anything I found in the court's order unless someone can point me to that language that was written by the judge, and then I would recite that. Can any of you point me to language where the judge said that it was unreasonable?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is a violation of the public trust and of the ethical standards of this Senate that a person leverages their criminal trial in their attempt to delay the ethics trial or hearing. And that's what's at issue here. Not the goings-on or decisions according to law for the criminal trial. This is, the complaint before us is for the standards in the Minnesota Senate.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, the abuse is in regards to the delay of these ethical proceedings. That's the abuse.
Okay. So I'm going to go to some others who have some questions because I want to make sure that I'm not monopolizing the time. Thank you for answering my questions. I really do appreciate it. Senator Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Rule 55.14 says if criminal proceedings related to the same conduct have begun, the subcommittee may defer. Doesn't say we must, it says we may. I have agreed to do that, but we also agreed to come back if there was any additional information. And in this case, not only is there an amended complaint that includes a new felony charge, but in the amended complaint, Mr. Chairman, there is substantially more information that is included in this complaint compared to the old complaint. So I think it's upon us to do our job as a ethics subcommittee to review the information, to hear from our Senate colleagues. We're not here to be judge and jury. We're not here to determine if someone's guilty or not guilty. We're here to determine if one of our members of the Minnesota Senate violated our Senate rules. And if you read Rule 56.1, it says members, that's us, members of the Minnesota Senate, members must adhere to the highest standard of ethical conduct as embodied in the Minnesota Constitution, state law, and these rules that are before us. Okay? It doesn't say, I don't see anywhere in our temporary rules of the Senate, state of Minnesota, where it says we as members of the Senate are here to determine whether one of our colleagues is guilty or not guilty. I don't see that anywhere in the rules. But we are here to determine whether or not one of our colleagues violated the rules of the Senate. And then if you look at Rule 56.3, Mr. Chairman, it says improper conduct includes conduct that violates a rule or administrative policy of the Senate, that violates accepted norms of Senate behavior, that betrays the public trust, or that tends to bring the Senate into dishonor or disrepute. So that's what we're here to determine today, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to hear from Senator Mitchell, and then I have a few questions after.
You know damn well she ain't gonna answer no questions.
I just want to make it clear, we're not here to determine whether or not anyone's guilty or not guilty. We're here to determine if one of our Senate colleagues violated the rules of the Minnesota Senate.
Senator Miller, I would agree with you that the rule says in 55.14, if criminal proceedings relating to the same conduct have begun. I think you will agree with me that there's a process that is ongoing from the same conduct, that the amendment does not bring any new information that would suggest that it's different conduct. And the second thing that I would hope that you would agree, you're right, that it says may. We don't have to postpone it, but we know that it's been there's been the precedent of this body that if there's a criminal proceeding going forward, that we would, wait until that has been done. And even though we keep saying that we're not looking at guilt or innocence, but I've heard us reading from the complaint, which is a criminal complaint that has not been adjudicated as of yet. So there's a process in order to test any
This nigga here, oh my Lord.
That's the only thing that I'm saying, because there's this little thing that's called due process. Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I would love to reference the body cam footage, but that hasn't been available to us. So we are just trying to figure out and work off the information that's available to us. And one of the members in front of us had mentioned something about a crowbar. And you were questioning, well, shouldn't the officer see the crowbar when they're on the scene? Mr. Chairman, it was 4:45 in the morning. I don't know what it's like in Minneapolis, but down in Winona, it's still pretty dark at 4:45 in the morning. So if the victim in this case gets called back later the next day or later that morning when it's light outside and says, hey, officer, there's a crowbar in the window well of my house that's not mine, I would not expect that to be in the original statement of probable cause if it happened later in the day. And then furthermore, the following day, Mr. Chairman, it says one of the officers returned to the victim's residence on April 25th. So that was a couple days later. I believe this all happened on April 22nd, right? So this was 3 days later. And I'm just going to read right from the statement of, sorry, I'm not an attorney, I have to look at this, statement of probable cause. It says that the officers returned to the victim's residence on April 25th, so this was 2 or 3 days later. At that time, it was determined that a small sliding basement window where Mitchell's backpack was shoved, and if you remember from the first complaint, this is the window that Senator Mitchell said that she entered, so I have some questions for her. Which window did she actually enter in the basement? Because the original window that she said she entered, they determined it was too small for a human to fit through. So then the officers determined that the larger egress window next to where the crowbar was discovered was Mitchell's most probable point of entry. The officer noted faint pry marks on the window. He also observed traces of loose dirt around the windowsill and on the desk immediately inside the egress window. Mr. Chairman, that is substantially new information compared to where we were when we last met as an ethics committee.
Senator Mitchell, maybe you or the testifiers can answer this question that I think would help. Can you tell me the date that the prosecutor amended the complaint? What date was it?
Mr. Chairman, it looks like it was electronically signed, so I'm guessing that's the day that it was submitted, was February 6th, 2025.
So Senator Miller and or the testifier, are you suggesting to me that 3 days later, after a officer goes out there allegedly, and the only reason why I'm saying allegedly, I'm not questioning them because this information has not been tested. So are you telling me that 3 days later they go out and discover something and there's not the opportunity for the prosecutor to amend the complaint before February of 2025? And the answer is no, there's nothing that would suggest that a prosecutor cannot amend the complaint. And the only thing that one could question, with all due respect to the prosecutor and law enforcement, is that it was more political than it was factual. Because if you recall, had Senator Mitchell gone to trial January 27th of 2025, this new count would not have even been a part of it. So it was not until after the judge entertained giving a continuance in this matter did the prosecutor now come with what you're now describing as new information that was realized, if true, 3 days after this first incident occurred. So, Senator Miller, I agree. The prosecutor can do whatever they want.
Mr. Chairman?
They have the right to amend. They have the right to do whatever they want. But I'm sure we all agree that if this alleged information was available 2 days after or 3 days after on April 25th, it does not take any prosecutor to amend a complaint several months later after
This nigga coming up with all this excuses.
Of the trial, they say that's new information. They had it, if they had anything, back in April.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Miller.
I don't know the answer to that question because I'm not a prosecutor, but I do know that we are here today to determine whether or not one of our members violated Rule 56 of the Senate rules, Senate State of Minnesota rules. 56.1 says members must adhere to the highest standard of ethical conduct as embodied in the Minnesota Constitution, state law, and these rules. I would argue that state law was violated as well as the rules of the Minnesota Senate. Mr. Chairman, Rule 56.3 says improper conduct includes conduct that violates a rule of administrative policy of the Senate that violates accepted norms of Senate behavior. I'm not sure that breaking into your stepmother's home is an accepted norm of Senate behavior. Also, Mr. Chairman, Rule 56.3 says that betrays the public trust or that tends to bring the Senate into dishonor and disrepute. Mr. Chairman, that is what we're here to determine today.
Senator Miller, the only reason why I went down that road, and then I'll get to you, Senator Matthew, the only reason why I went down that road is because you were the one who said that there's new information that has been articulated in the complaint that wasn't available before.
Mr. Chairman, I said there was substantially new information, which there is substantially new information in front of me right now.
I want to make sure that we don't interrupt each other, because when you were talking, I was very quiet. I didn't say anything. But if you want to clarify it, I'll say substantial from your vantage point. The only reason why I raised it is only because I was responding to what you said as pertains to substantial new information, and I'm saying it's not substantial and it's not new information. There would be a jury that would decide whether it's substantial enough in order for the person to be found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and that is this. That will let us know if state law was violated. Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple points I want to bring out with this discussion. Excuse me. Long description about the process and what the prosecutor chose to do and not do. This committee had agreed last year the right to come back if we got new information. It's basically irrelevant to this committee how or when we got that new information. Fact is, we did get new information because I went through as well, looking for and highlighting what new facts are in the updated complaint that we didn't know about from the previous complaint. And it is significant. There's a lot of highlighted information that is on this. So it's irrelevant as to how we got it. We can question if the prosecutor was political, not political. You know, as an attorney, the prosecutor has discretion to do that in whatever time frame that they want to do or choose to do. They have significant prosecutorial discretion. The end of the day, the bottom line is this committee now has information that we didn't have publicly released last year at the time of the first complaint and the first hearings that we did. So it is well within our committee's rights to consider this and determine whether or not we want to act on this new information. The second point that I want to make is we go round and round in circles about this word may. from Rule 55. It's now Rule 55.14
Right.
in our rules.
I agree.
And we do not simply have to rely on the decision that this committee made last year in our hearings at that time, because new significant factors can change this committee's determination as to whether or not we will stay on, as we did last year, deciding to defer proceedings until more steps had occurred, or whether this committee now wants to change its mind and move forward on that. The new proceedings, you know, where we left off in a hearing last year, and I forget which month it was, but I believe it was while we were still in session, was we had set a date for after a potential June 2024 hearing in order to determine if there was new actionable information at that time. And you know, as well as everyone on this committee, that June 2024 got delayed to January 2025. And then, as the complainants have alleged here in this new complaint, just a few days before that hearing,
I agree, Pam. You already know I agree.
Invoked the Minnesota statute. Was a second delay from January 25, and now it's, I believe, scheduled in June 25. And there's a whole argument of leveraging the Senate process against the judicial proceedings while simultaneously leveraging the judicial proceedings against our Senate process here. So this committee gets to decide how many times that circle can be, how many times we can run around that merry-go-round before deciding that we're actually going to take action here. And the final point that I'm going to throw out, Mr. Chair, with that is the trial is now scheduled for June, and we all hope that we are done on time here in this session. However, there is a non-zero chance, hopefully it's a very, very small chance, but there's a non-zero chance that the legislature could find itself in session in June of 2025. And question definitely is posed out there. Is there potentially going to be a repeat of this again, asking for a delay yet again from June 2025 to some future date? And what is the committee then going to do at that point? How long we're going to continue to wait for this? So with those reasons, it is well within this committee's rights to determine if we will still use the may defer its proceedings, or if we decide it's time for us to decide not the criminal trial. All of that is not, we're not the judge and jury, but we can decide whether we should change course and decide whether the conduct here is in violation of our Senate Rule 56.
So thank you, Senator Matthews, for those words. I will agree, just so that we're clear, we did agree as a committee that we will come back if there's new information. And every time we heard something, as we approached the hearing, I made sure that we called everyone to say, here's the information. We even provided it to you in writing, what we learned, and then for us to determine if that was something that would require us to come back in, because I've always been committed to that. And so, and so as a committee, we can decide, and I think we should either decide if we're going to delay this until after the criminal proceeding, or take a vote one way or the other. It's fine. I do think that that we would get done on time. Maybe I'm just a hopeless optimist, but I see Senator Draheim shaking his head, but I'm hoping that we do get finished in time.
I think they'll be in June.
But
I think they'll be at the
predict the
Capitol.
future, and I can't predict what is going to happen. I can only be hopeful that we will finish on time, and that Senator Mitchell will have a right to due process, and she'll get a chance to go through her trial. And so before I go to asking the committee important questions, I'm going to recognize Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm even more optimistic. I think we're going to get done early this session. That's what I'm hoping for. I do want to say publicly, you have been very, very good about communicating with the committee, and we have agreed that if until new information is available to us, that we would not come together again, and you have done a tremendous job of communicating with us. But the reality is, there is substantially new information in front of us that we're discussing today and reviewing.
There's a lot
I'm
of new
wondering,
information. There should be a lot of
Are we going to
ethics
hear from Senator Mitchell
committees.
next? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions, you all will have an opportunity to do a rebuttal if you like. Okay, thank you so very much.
Senator Mitchell,
if you'd be so
we'll come
kind as
down to
to
the
join us
nitty-gritty.
at the dais.
Damn, I ain't gonna be able to do my whole episode. I'm probably gonna be able to just talk about the Rochester homelessness, because I really want to talk about that in the school and the USDA COVID cuts.
Senator Mitchell, you are
the
under
Department of
oath as
Education.
the other testifiers. You did so
Oh,
kindly come
she got a
forward
lawyer up
and you
there?
were sworn in. As you know, as I indicated earlier, that those who are bringing the complaint, they would have 10 uninterrupted minutes of an opportunity to talk. You now have your 10 minutes, and you can
Okay,
use
let's
that 10
go.
minutes in any way that you would like. If you will identify yourself for the record and
Nicole Mitchell.
then give us your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of
I'm
the
a lawyer.
committee. I appreciate your time. I am here to ask that the committee continue to follow Senate custom and delay any decision until after any allegations are completely resolved. Not only is it Senate custom, but it's the will of the people of Minnesota who we all represent.
Right.
There was actually a poll that came out just last month asking Minnesotans from around the state whether a decision by the Senate should be made now or wait until the conclusion of the matter in question. And the majority of people want to wait. And while it's not a poll, the feedback I've received from my own district has been even more clear. People reaching out every day to tell me what's important to them or how I can help them in some way. A lot of anxiety right now based on things coming down at the federal level. I have a growing district, and my district population is estimated now at almost 87,000 people. They have asked me to
Right.
stay and keep working for them, and they
It is
deserve
bullshit.
representation. So again, I ask that you follow the course that you have already taken, the course of Senate custom, and delay a decision until the appropriate time. Thank you. I'm sure you understand that beyond this statement, I will not be able to comment further or answer questions
Damn.
related
See,
to
that's
this
what we're not gonna
ethics
get no
complaint.
answers today.
Thank you,
You're
Senator.
not gonna get any answers.
Senator Mitchell. Members, any questions? Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Mitchell, is there a police report available from the incident? And if so, have you seen it?
Senator Mitchell.
Senator Miller, as I have stated, I am not able to answer questions, which to
Damn.
me is the very crux of why we should delay this, because I have a constitutional right. I would very much like to answer questions, and I look forward to the ability for due process to play out and for myself to be able to do that, but I cannot at this time.
That's crazy.
Exactly why
We
we
don't
should
know. I
delay
don't
the
like that.
proceedings.
Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Mitchell, is there body cam footage available from the incident? And if so, have you seen it?
Again,
Senator
Senator
Mitchell.
Miller, I cannot answer questions.
Right,
There's an
this is
extensive public
crazy.
record, which you are able to look at.
Wow.
Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that I noticed when I was reviewing the original complaint and then the amended complaint, not only is there an additional felony charge included in the amended complaint, but there's substantially more information on what happened on during the incident on April 22nd. And Mr. Chairman and Senator Mitchell, one of the things that I saw that was in the amended complaint but is not in the original complaint is this quote. This is quoted right from the complaint. The victim stated when she called the police that there was an individual on the floor next to her bed and that the individual ran into the basement. The victim would later add that she had stepped on the individual briefly before they got up and fled the room, end quote. My question for Senator Mitchell, Mr. Chair, is, Senator Mitchell, were you on the floor next to your stepmother's bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, or approximately? The phone call was at 4:45 a.m., so I'm not sure exactly what time, but approximately 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:45 a.m. on April 22nd, 2024.
Senator Mitchell,
Again, Senator Miller,
can't
I
answer
have a
that.
right under the
Crazy.
Constitution to not be answering questions. I have made that very clear, which is exactly why we should wait until the time that I can answer questions.
Wow. No, why don't you just tell
Mr.
the
Chairman,
truth,
I have
bitch? I don't
one
care.
more
I should
question
call
for
her no B
now.
word. I'm sorry. But answer
And
the
I did
question,
not see
Senator.
this in the statement of probable cause, but Senator
I don't get
Lucero
that.
mentioned it in his comments that at some point, Senator Mitchell, you had mentioned that you were doing a welfare check on your stepmother. And my question
Wow,
is,
welfare
because what
check?
is in the statement of probable cause is that you entered your stepmother's home through a basement window. So my question for you is, if you were doing a welfare check on your stepmother, why did you enter her home
Right,
and break
through a
into her
window.
home through a basement window?
Right.
Senator Mitchell,
She ain't gonna
Senator
answer.
Miller, my previous answer to you
That's
stands.
crazy.
Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That, it sounds like, I'm not gonna, actually, Mr. Chairman, I have a question for you, a legal
Yes.
question, okay? So just generally speaking, nothing to do with this ethics complaint. But my question for you as an attorney and someone who's much more familiar with this than me,
He a
does
dirty
state
ass
law
attorney.
prohibit an individual from using a tool like a crowbar found in the window well of the victim's house to break into someone else's home and commit burglary and theft? And if that is prohibited in state law, what would the consequences be if someone were to be found guilty for that?
Thank you for that question, Senator Miller. As you probably know, that every case, based on the facts, are different. So even though that there's a statute that we have, that a person is accused of breaking or violating, the whole reason why we go through the legal process and have a trier of fact is because the prosecution has the burden to prove the person guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And so there's so many other things that would become a part of that process. The prosecutor would have to put forth witnesses, any DNA, any video information. But again, there's a process, and then a judge can decide based on a person's criminal history, if a person is found guilty, what should be the consequence. So I don't think there's a mandatory minimum under the statute that you're looking at, or a person can be exonerated. Like, it happens over and over again. I've won, cases over and over again where there's a probable cause statement that makes them look like they're guilty, but in fact, once you go through the process, they're found innocent. That's the importance of due process, because under our Constitution, a person has the right to confront any accuser. And simply because someone says it happened doesn't mean it happened. And the last thing I'll say about this, which is kind of a little levity, is if you ever looked at My Cousin Vinny. And so if you look at that movie where someone said they were clear that this is what happened, and then on cross-examination, when it was determined that they needed glasses, didn't have the glasses on, there was obstructed view, there's all these other things, it turned out that the person's testimony
This
was not
Nicole
as strong
Mitchell.
as what individuals
Senator
thought.
Nicole
So
Mitchell.
it's a long way to
Right.
answer your question, but that's the whole reason for the process, is so we can test the validity of it. And then if a person is found not guilty, then the case goes away. But if they're guilty, then there would be a sentencing, and
Right.
then you look at the person's record and so on and so forth.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator
Right.
Mathis.
Thank you,
Right.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Mitchell. Mr. Chair and Senator Mitchell, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I'm not going to be asking substantive questions about what's in the complaint. That's been well established over several meetings that you are invoking your constitutional right to not answer the substantive questions to the case. I am going to ask you a few process questions, because that is related to some of what we have this
Drozowski,
amended
especially,
complaint
Steve.
here before us. So at some point last year, there was I don't know if it was the trial, but there was some form of hearing that was scheduled in June of 2024 that your attorneys then needed moved later than that date. Is that correct?
Senator Mitchell.
There was a hearing scheduled for June that my attorneys had a conflict with. I believe it was rescheduled 3 weeks later.
Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At some point then, and I don't know how many reschedules happened, but at some point then, the trial date got scheduled for January 27th, 2025, at some point last summer or fall. Is that correct?
Senator Mitchell.
Senator, that is correct. All of this is in the public record, and I am getting to the point where I will not be able to talk about this again.
Oh, my Lord.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Mitchell. Yes, I'm not going to be asking about anything in the record. Did your attorneys agree to the January 27th, 2025 trial date when that date got set?
Senator Mitchell.
Senator Matthews, I am going to not answer additional questions at this time. I was not part of that. That is a question for my attorneys who are not able to be here today.
Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Mitchell. I would be asking them these questions if they were here. So the request to continue off of the January 27th date was made on January 10th, 2025. I guess the question I would be asking to your attorneys is if they were aware that January 27th fell within when the legislature was in session at the time that they agreed to that hearing. So I'll pose that to you. I know that your attorneys aren't here, but that's the question that
Look at Bobby, damn.
Senator
that I'm
Mitchell.
posing.
Senator Matthews, you're now asking me to tell you what a different person did or did not know. And again, I'm not going to continue commenting on this.
Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Mitchell. No, communication between attorneys and clients, sometimes you do know why you're doing different things or different motions, but I understand. So the request got filed on January 10th, 2025 to continue the trial and invoking Minnesota statute 3.16. So my question is, was it on January 10th or at what earlier date did you and your defense team determine that it was within the legislative session and that you would need a continuance?
Senator Matthews. Excuse me,
I
Senator
want to
Mitchell.
see where his supporters are at,
Senator
too.
Matthews, as someone who has been to law school yourself, you know that conversations between a client and their attorneys
It's
are
privileged.
privileged
Oh, my
and therefore
Lord.
are not within the scope of this.
Senator Matthews, she does have a point. So if your question is going to keep going
This
to
nigga
attorney-client
here,
privilege, I'm not sure if that's the best use of our time. Senator Matthews.
Mr. Chair, I am in no way asking her to disclose what her and her attorney's strategies are, what their defenses are going to be, what attorney work that they've been doing. I'm all talking about calendar dates, and I just have one question left on it, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I believe, and Senator Mitchell, I believe the trial is now scheduled in June of 2025. As I indicated earlier, hopefully the legislature is done at that point, but there is a non-zero chance that the legislature is still in session at June 2025. So if we come to that date again, will it be your intention to file a similar continuance request under Minnesota statute 3.16 to delay it again off of June 2025?
Senator Mitchell.
Senator Matthews, again, I am not going to be answering questions about conversations with my lawyer or related to details behind this case.
Senator Miller, were you done, Senator Matthews? Okay, Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for Senator Matthews. I don't know how often I've heard the term non-zero chance. Are you saying that there could be or could not be a chance that we're done on time? That's my question for you.
That's
I'm
a
just
pretty
kidding.
good question there, Senator Miller, because I wasn't quite sure.
I don't know if I've heard that term very often. Senator Mitchell, just for clarification, I have a question. Did you state earlier that when this January 27th date was set and agreed to, that your attorneys did not consult with you about that date? Did I hear you correctly when you said that?
Senator Mitchell.
Senator Miller, I do not recall phrasing it in that way, but I'm sure Senator Champion could speak to the scheduling process better than I could, but I think it has a lot to do with other people's schedules.
Well, so Mr. Chairman, Senator Mitchell, did your attorneys consult with you when the January 27th date was set? Did they consult with you, and was there agreement amongst you?
There had to been.
Senator Miller, that gets into attorney-client.
See, I don't, oh my
answer.
Lord.
Senator Mitchell.
You can't ask shit.
Senator Miller, I was informed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Senator Miller.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? And if there are questions, let's please stay away from the facts, because she's already made it very clear that she's not going to answer specific questions related to the case. So if you could help us out, that would be great. Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Mitchell, do you acknowledge that
You know,
a criminal
I gotta
trial
ask
and
something.
this ethics committee are
Damn.
different processes?
Senator Mitchell.
Senator Lucero, based on how some people are trying to play it out, it seems like there might be some confusion, but yes, they are different processes.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Mitchell. Do you acknowledge that the Senate rules of ethical conduct are unrelated to criminal proceedings?
Senator Mitchell.
Senator Lucero, I do not fully have the rules memorized. I believe there is some overlap in how things relate, and so I would leave that to experts like Senator Champion.
Oh, he ain't no expert.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Senator Housley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Mitchell, off of what Senator Lucero said, violating ethical conduct of the Minnesota Senate, your attorney was asked why Senator Mitchell allegedly wore all black and carried a flashlight with a sock over it. And your attorney said that I agree that all of these circumstances would suggest that was her plan to go in and out without disturbing anyone, as well to try and receive the items that are hers. I believe she was trying to protect herself from being noticed. I'm not going to deny that. She wanted to basically make a check and retrieve a couple of items that she felt were being wrongfully withheld from her despite earlier promises. He said that to the Star Tribune, April 23rd, 2024. So I don't know if you've talked to your attorney about what he stated, but do you believe that that would be a violation of our ethical conduct in the Minnesota Senate?
She's not going to answer.
Senator Mitchell.
Senator Housley, I can't speak to what someone else said. I can say that I did not have a lawyer officially hired on April 23rd, so I find that statement confusing.
Senator Housley.
Right.
Mr. Chair and Senator Mitchell, when we had our last ethics committee, you had Bruce Ringstrom Jr. here as your attorney, and this was Bruce Ringstrom Sr. As part of the same firm representing you, according to his son on the last ethics committee trial. So you're saying he was not hired as your attorney?
Right.
Senator Mitchell, to the question. Did you hear the question?
Senator Housley, I would have to look at my records, but I officially retained that firm late in that week.
Senator
not,
Housley.
which was not the 23rd.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you off. Senator Housley, any
This
follow-up
nigga
before
weird.
we go to rebuttal?
Yes, just one more. So I just want to confirm for the record that the booking photo that was taken April 22nd of you dressed all in black at the Becker County Jail was indeed you.
She ain't gonna answer.
Senator Mitchell.
Senator Housley, again, I am not going to comment on details of the case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
She can't answer that.
Seeing
It
no
was a
further
true or not.
questions, thank you, Senator
I don't understand that
Mitchell.
shit.
We will now welcome Senator Lucero and Senator Housley back to the table along with Senator Barr. According to the process that I laid out, once the questioning was done with Senator Mitchell, that there would be a rebuttal if
Right.
those who brought the complaint
Right.
wants to do a rebuttal. And if so, we will give you 5 uninterrupted minutes if you want to do a rebuttal. And then the committee will discuss next steps. Are we ready?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, thank you for taking time today to consider the new information in this matter. Last spring, the Minnesota Senate returned from its Easter Passover break short a member. One of our colleagues was found dressed all in black by police officers in her stepmother's basement after a frantic 911 call reporting an intruder. That intruder was member Senator Nicole Mitchell, who has been charged with 2 felonies. What happened in the early hours of April 22nd, 2024 is a disappointing and sad episode. Many of us have experienced difficult losses and strained relationships of complicated family dynamics. But that's absolutely no excuse to break into anybody's home through a basement window, dressed all in black, to take things.
We contend Senator Mitchell's actions in April of 2024 violated Senate standards of ethical conduct in 3 ways. First, Rule 56.1 requires members to adhere to the highest standards of ethical conduct.
Right.
Senator Mitchell is charged with 2 felonies. This fact alone is unprecedented for this body. Further, she was literally found at the scene of the crime by police officers in all black clothing and a black hat. This body can definitively conclude such behavior is simply not the highest standard of ethical conduct. Ask yourselves, does driving 3 hours in the middle of the night and being found by police officers in someone else's basement constitute high ethical standards? Any reasonable person would say no. Second, Rule 56.3 identifies improper conduct as conduct that betrays the public trust. The public trust has clearly been violated. We must not allow it to become an accepted norm for senators to engage in felonies and continue to vote on legislation. Third, Senate Rule 56.2 prohibits members from publishing false or clearly misleading statements. Senator Mitchell's published statement is in direct contradiction to the comments she made to arresting officers after being read her Miranda rights. Senator Mitchell offered a misleading account of her actions to generate sympathy for her situation. Lastly, Senator Mitchell has violated Senate Rule 56.3 by abusing due process, using her position to first delay ethics proceedings in the Senate, then turned right around and leveraged her position in the Senate to delay her criminal proceedings. The public's trust has been violated. When this committee met last May, it deferred action to after Senator Mitchell's next court proceeding. It was argued to this committee that the legal process was only a few short weeks away, and it could hold off decisions to allow the trial to proceed. The committee never reconvened because the trial faced delays throughout the year. We are here today with more information from the court case, and the trial delayed yet again due to Senator Mitchell's service in the legislature.
Again, Mr. Chair, the real victim in this case is Carol Mitchell. Recently, Carol Mitchell has been diagnosed with a cognitive impairment. All of us know someone who has been diagnosed with a memory disorder, and in these cases, days can matter. These delays to manipulate the system and the Senate rules are all by design to make it harder for Carol Mitchell to speak about her experience with clarity. Due process is foundational to this country, but what has happened here is not due process. It's a manipulation of procedure to prevent both the courts and the Senate from taking action to hold Senator Mitchell accountable for her actions. This committee owes it to the public to take seriously its duty to hold our members to the highest standards of ethical conduct. The rules of conduct outlined in this little rule book should not only be for show, Mr. Chair. Instead, these rules, our Senate rules, should carry weight and meaning if they are to deliver on their purpose.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for your testimony today. The committee will now decide what the next step should be or decision around this case. Members, under Rule 55.5, we met the mark of within 30 calendar days after receiving the complaint. We are here meeting, and there are a couple options available to us. One is for there to be a finding of no probable cause. We can vote to defer action until a certain time or proceed with an investigation. Any suggestions as to how you, or which vote you'd like to take first, or if there's a motion? Senator Matthews.
Mr. Chair, that was going to be one of the questions that I think is best posed for you to answer as to your intention with this. If you were still remaining of the position that we had last year, given all this new information, I think our positions have been pretty clear on this all the way along, but we are needing to hear
Right, we all know.
what you and your side is believing with the May and the rule and the new information and the delayed trial dates and all of that.
Thank you. Senator Matthews, from my perspective, this is an amendment to an ongoing criminal proceeding that's already in process. There's a trial date, and the information with some new facts, whether you say it's substantial or not, does not move me one way or the other to say now that we have all the information, because whatever is articulated in the probable cause statement, those are allegations, and they're not determined until there's a proceeding, whether a person makes an admission, and there's been nothing that says that Senator Mitchell has made any admission, and there's nothing that would suggest that we have all the information. So from my vantage point, we should continue to delay it until after the criminal proceeding, and then whatever happens there,
they're going to do a damn thing.
We can, certainly reconvene on that motion.
Right, they played down.
And between now and then, if there's some admission or there's some plea agreement or something happens, then that would be new information, because then we have had the opportunity to hear from Senator Mitchell in that context. Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is the process? Let's say that this ethics subcommittee takes a vote and agrees that one of our members, just generally speaking, did violate the rules of the Senate. What is, or what are the next steps? Does that go to the full Rules Committee and then to the Senate floor, or how does that process work?
Yeah, you got it right. We would have a recommendation, whatever we decide to do, if we believe someone should be expelled or censored or whatever it is, that would go to the Rules Committee, and then the Rules would bring that to the floor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kunish, and remember that we have a whole nother complaint that we have to hear as well. Senator Kunish.
Sure. I just want to ask you, or ask the experts here, have we ever Have we ever, in the history of the Minnesota Senate, acted on a complaint involving a criminal case before the legal case has been completed or concluded? Have we ever done that before? I say that because we're talking about norms and practices here in the Minnesota Senate. Do you know if that has ever been the case?
I will go to Ms. Stengel, who can speak to that question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Kunesh. To my knowledge, the Senate has not taken action on an ethical complaint brought before the Subcommittee on Ethics where a member is also the subject of a criminal complaint until the criminal complaint has been finally discharged. There are several instances where there's a criminal complaint and the member has either left office or it's been otherwise resolved before the ethical process is played out.
So if we were
Senator
to,
Kunesh.
thank you. So if we were to vote on something like that, that would certainly buy away from our general practices in the past. And I think we really need to take that into consideration. And if that's something that we want to create a presumption or a future action, I think we need to think about that hard.
Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Along the same lines, I'm just wondering if we're going back in history, do we know if we've ever had a member that's been charged with
burglary,
that's been charged with 2 felonies?
Right.
Ms. Stengel.
Mr. Chair and Senator Miller, I do not know the answer to that. I know that there have been members that have been charged with various crimes, some of which may have been a felony, but I don't know the number of counts.
Thank you.
Seeing no other question, Senator Matthews. Yeah, motion. Go ahead, Senator Matthews.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate your perspective on how you view the facts with this case. However, I am going to, with the new information that we had in here, I am going to make a motion that this committee make a finding of probable cause and make a recommendation to the Rules Committee for expulsion. That is my motion, and I believe I need to request a roll call vote for that.
That's up to you.
I will request a roll call vote, Mr. Chair.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Any questions on the motion that is before? Seeing none, Taylor, Ms. Bennett will take the roll.
Senator Kunesh.
No.
Senator Matthews.
Yes.
Senator Miller.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Champion.
Chair Champion.
No.
No.
That's crazy.
There being 2 ayes and 2 nays, the motion is not adopted.
Wow.
Any other motions?
That's crazy.
Well, let's go through them
2
then.
people, 2 people.
We've already heard the motion for probable cause. I will now go to the motion to see if there should be additional investigation. Motion before the body is whether there should be further investigation. Do I need someone else to make that motion, or can I just make that motion because it's okay?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. So the motion has been made. What are the results? What if this is a upward? If it passes or it fails, what are the results of each of those votes?
Results if Senator Kunesh makes the motion, and if she votes no, and I vote no, and you 2 vote yes, then it fails. There would be no investigation. And then we will then go to whether the committee wants to defer this action until after the trial.
Mr. Chairman, what if all 4 of us vote yes? Then what happens?
Then an investigation would be launched.
In Mr. Chairman or council, what does that mean?
Senator, I will turn to Senate Counsel, Ms. Stengel to the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Miller. That's up to the subcommittee to decide. It could be additional hearings with additional witnesses. It could be looking to have somebody outside come in. It's really up to the subcommittee to determine what that investigation would look like.
All right.
Look at them. They got, oh
Any other
my
questions,
God.
Senator Matthews?
Mr. Chair, could you just reread? It appears someone made an official motion. Could you just repeat
Yeah, the
what that
official
is?
motion is that the committee should proceed with an investigation.
Right.
That is the motion.
I
made by
definitely
Senator
agree. It's all
Kunesh.
corrupt.
All right.
They know
Are
so
we
many
requesting a roll
loopholes.
call? Roll call requested, roll call granted, and we'll turn to Ms. Bennett to take the roll.
Shamika.
Senator Miller,
Yes.
Senator Matthews,
Yes.
Two
Senator
no's.
Kunish,
No?
Right. 2 no's. Goddamn.
Chair Champion.
No. There being 2 ayes and 2 noes, the motion fails. Now we are on whether there is going to be a motion to defer until after the trial. Senator Kunish? That's the motion that is before the body. Now we will discuss it. Senator Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have the same commitment from you that if new information becomes available, you mentioned earlier if there's a plea deal or if body cam footage becomes available, whatever that new information might be, then we would come together again as a ethics subcommittee to review that new information?
That's my continued commitment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I just need to answer a question. We know what the motion is that right? All right.
And I'll ask for a roll call on that, Mr. Chair.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Ms. Bennett will take the roll.
Senator Miller,
Aye. Yes.
Senator Matthews,
Yes.
Senator Kunish,
No?
Senator Champion.
Yes.
And I will change that to a yes.
Oh,
Thank
look
you.
at her. I fucking hate this shit.
I was a little confused there for a minute. Thank you.
No problem. Again, there being 4 votes to delay until after the trial, the motion prevails. Members, and that's a part of our consistency around wanting to make sure that the trial.
I wanna see what the next
Members, I
is.
also just want you to be conscious of the time. I'm not rushing anyone. I'm just making sure that everyone knows that. We'll now move to the complaint that's brought by Senator Jaskowski. I'll ask Senator Jaskowski to come forward to make the presentation of his complaint. Are you having any other witnesses, Senator Jaskowski? Or members?
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Miller?
I'm sorry to do this, but can I ask for a quick break to rinse out my coffee cup and fill it up with water quickly before we start the next
Yes.
complaint? Thank you. I'll be right back.
Brief recess until he returns.
Damn, that's crazy. I'm just gonna, yeah, that's wild. Wow. You know, my thing of it is, are we ever, earlier this week in committee, you seen Bill Glenn from the American Experiment did a presentation in the fraud committee about feeding our future. And I sit here and wonder, they come down to a political standstill. Are we ever going to honestly get transparency? Are we ever going to get an answer? Because I see it as whatever politics you fit under, that's what they see as okay, right? And basically in my eyes, with Bobby Champion, you're basically covering it up. You're okay with that, right? And that's what I'm tired of. You know what I'm saying? You say you want to be politicians. You say you're fighting for the people. What are you fighting for? Because if you're fighting for us, we want an answer. We want transparency. You know what I'm saying? The good, the bad, are the ugly. And I don't understand that because, I start to feel like, we have to live in this. We have to, it frustrates me, right? Personally, because I see politics isn't about policies. It's not about bettering people's lives. It's not about bettering your community. It's about, do we like you or do we not? I'm gonna be dead ass serious because, and I don't mean to put this out here because I just want to show something, right? Because this morning when I was listening to John Justice, Eric Lucero came on there. I thought it was going to be a Drzowski complaint, but it was Eric and Housley. But he had something himself. You know what I'm saying? And if you don't remember, when I first started this, I started a mutual aid group called Red Wing Area Mutual Aid. And I ended up putting a food pantry in Steve Drzowski's area, just a couple blocks away from where he lived, right? So he stands by his hunger comments. And I honestly, I stood by my comments. So I put up a pantry in Steve Drzowski's district because there was a need to feed people. And it does get very good. You know what I'm saying? It's in a lady's yard in where he lives, where Drzowski lives, in Goodhue County. Yeah, it's just a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful, 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 beautiful thing. Pamela, she's on there right now. If she's still watching, she comes up when I put Steve Drzowski's name in there, right? Daycare owner challenging Wabasha County's decision to shut down her business. Nobody really wants to talk about that. You know, nobody wants to talk about the evil that is, somebody was showing it. The evil that is done in our communities when it comes to these administrations, when it comes to, the county or the state. To be honest, it's everywhere. It's not just in Minneapolis. It's not just in Rochester. It's in Duluth. It's in Owatonna. It's in Mankato. It's in Jackson. Because I will tell you like this. I live in southern Minnesota right now, and it hurts to see that, I will tell you like this, right? You look at Rochester, Minnesota for their homelessness, right? And you look at it so much, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit because that was a long ass hearing, long ass hearing that they did for Nicole. I figured pretty much nothing was going to happen, but I will tell you like this. I want to switch over to Rochester, right? And I want to talk about homelessness. And since I got into this in 2020, we had done so much for homelessness, right? I mean, we had spent millions to correct this, right? To make it better. But I will tell you like this, they only promote certain stories. They don't promote or talk about everybody, because I will tell you like this, when it comes to housing, it's not just the one, you can end it with one solution. We're going to end it like this. No, because I will tell you like this, every situation has different barriers. They have different barriers of what they go through, right? So I want to talk about that. And then the 1 year after the encampment ban, because they did ban being homeless in Rochester. So I want to get into that a little bit.
A year after Rochester's camping ban was approved, a measure designed to reduce homelessness, the city council is getting a progress update. The council holding a study session this afternoon on the current state of PEH, that's people experiencing homelessness. The ordinance approved by last year's council on a 4-3 vote prohibits camping on city property and city rights of way. Today, the council heard from RPD on its ongoing enforcement efforts. The council also learned about a group of partner agencies called Any Path Home. Its focus is to connect PEH to stable housing. Any Path Home is seeking the city's support in its endeavor with membership on its advisory board. Since this afternoon's meeting was a study session, no council action was taken.
Digging deeper now into the data presented by Rochester Police to the council this afternoon, the department calls the city's camping ban ordinance a big tool in preventing homeless encampments. Here's what the numbers are showing. According to RPD, between April and December of last year, 92 camps were identified. That's down 34% from 2023 during that same time period when 140 camps were detected by police. Police do say one reason for the 2024 decrease, the decrease was more people were willing to accept community assistance knowing an ordinance was in place. Let's look at RPD resources now being allocated by year to people experiencing homelessness. Last year, nearly 29,000 hours were spent by the department in this one area. To put that in perspective, RPD says those total hours equal full-time annual wages of about 13 officers. This year, in 2025, Rochester Police is anticipating spending $1.5 million in staff wages dealing with PEH. As for calls in service this year, during January and February, the first 2 months of this year, RPD reported 861 incidents involving people experiencing homelessness.
861 incidents. So between January and February in Rochester, they dealt with 861 incidents of people that are homeless that fit that criteria. Come on, man. Is that fighting crime? Because you've invented a crime. Because I will tell you like this, that you look at Feeding Our Future, and I'm going to cut this really short because I don't have much time left. But you look at Feeding Our Future and you see Amy Bach is at trial. You see she is up there. She's testifying in her own defense. And it's really curious to see some of the things that she's saying. So listen to Amy Bach and what she has to say.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Julie Nelson. The alleged mastermind behind the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme will be back on the stand tomorrow morning. And as soon as Amy Bach's lawyer is done questioning her, the highly anticipated cross-examination will begin. This follows a day in court where Bach defended her work, saying she did her best to root out any fraud. Lou Raguse was in court, which just wrapped up about 90 minutes ago. Lou?
Julie, Amy Bach's lawyer directly asked her, have you ever accepted a bribe, a kickback? And she said, absolutely not. She said that she tried to root out the fraud and report it as best she could and that she did not participate in it at all. Testifying in her own defense, Amy Bach said, "Oh, I was mad. I'm still mad," referring to the meal program fraud occurring under her watch at Feeding Our Future. Bach disputed charges that she was involved, let alone the mastermind, in the $250 million pandemic meal fraud case. Concerning one piece of obviously fraudulent paperwork another defendant submitted, Bach said, quote, "I was shocked and frankly annoyed that someone would submit such ridiculous claims to try to get federal meal program money." Concerning this video showing Bach receiving praise and adulation from people involved in the meal program, what prosecutors say she craved as part of her alleged motive, Bach said she felt surprised and confused. In her morning testimony, Bach insinuated that not everything that prosecutors identified as fraud was actually fraud. And when she was suspicious of fraudulent activity, Bach says she investigated it, even terminating about 50 meal sites, including some run by witnesses the jury heard earlier in the trial. She testified that a co-defendant, Abdikerm Idle, who is charged but has fled to Somalia, was supposed to be responsible for oversight of many of the meal sites now accused of fraud. And Bach addressed one of her wire fraud charges stemming from an email she received. "I'm confused. I'm upset," Bach testified. "I had no way to not receive it, and now I'm charged with a federal crime because someone chose to email me something."
She's had a pretty easy go so far, just being questioned by her attorneys. The numbers in this case are so stunning, it's hard to even imagine where the prosecution begins.
Yeah, somebody told me who knows this case very well that it would be smart for them to go after those text messages that she wrote that said, "We are now the mob," and other things like that, because, there's the Bach's attorney hasn't really focused on that very much. It'll be a very lengthy and, like you said, highly anticipated cross-examination.
Right.
Well, and just one more question for you. You mentioned Mr. Idle and that he'd fled to Somalia. Any idea how many of these potential defendants have left the country?
Only like 3 or 4. In fact, the ones that have been allowed to go back in order to sell land to get money back to the U.S. government, they've all returned. So for the most part, most of the defendants are here.
All right. Thanks so much, Lou. We'll check back in tomorrow.
That is crazy as hell. That's insane. Minnesota deal with a whole bunch of shit. I will tell you that we deal with a whole bunch of corruption in Minnesota. And will we find? Will we get an answer? I probably don't know. I don't know. I definitely don't think so. Because it's crazy. You know, we heard. I watched. I sat there and watched with you. You know, the Rules and Administration Subcommittee on Ethical Conduct, and we heard about Nicole Mitchell. Right now, there is one going on where Steve Drzowski, and if people want to pay attention to that, you can.
The president's appeal decision.
So that's about
her vote dismissed
Nicole Mitchell, and you know, people got to understand. I'm not saying that I disagree or any of that with, because I honestly I think there's a problem in our politics in Minnesota, and we need to look at it. It's not about policies. It's not about if the person is better. It's about, do we like them? You know what I'm saying? And it should be about, are they going to better our communities? Because I'll tell you that Rochester homelessness is out of pocket. I will tell you that the money that went to Feeding Our Future, it just wasn't Feeding Our Future. There was other billions of dollars that went to Medicaid. There was daycare, PCAs, peer recovery. It's everything is to help individuals that come from poverty. It was becoming an ATM. You know what I'm saying? It was becoming an automatic money machine. And we need to change that. So how do we change that? We get people from our neighborhoods that are out here doing the work, that don't want to work with the city to better. They want to do it with the people. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, man, I want y'all to have a great day. I'm going to watch Steve Drzowski here. And y'all, it's Thursday. Have a great Thursday. Winterfell, Freedom or Jail, Heaven or Hell. Wish me well. And here goes Jim Jones. Make it out.
I see y'all at the crossroads. Meet y'all in Gangsta's Paradise. SIP to all my fallen soldiers. Don't wanna miss nobody, but we still pouring liquor.
This for my dogs, they can't break me down. I go Rari or the land when I'm in the town. Watch my friends turn to enemies, I'm running out. All this blood on my hands, pray I'll make it out.
This shit get deep in the rap, feeling like they stole my identity. I just be speaking the facts, they want my soul and my energy. And that's crazy, if I call you my bro, you ain't gotta be no kin to me. Just for that, I'ma go drop top rolls like the Kennedys and shit. I hear niggas talking crazy like they made Jim. Like they was up them long nights and the days in. I know life's not promised, so at them nights I get to praise him. I was on the block, so I could have been standing next to light when they sprayed him. Damn, when the ship sank, I had to show him I could stay afloat. These niggas had to play sports, all my niggas had to play with coke. You gotta stand on your business, that's my favorite quote. Chicken sandwich, you would make the toast. We ain't have much, but we made the most.
This for my dogs, they can't break me down. I go Rari or the land when I'm in the town. Watch my friends turn to enemies, I'm running out. All this blood on my hands, pray I'll make it out.
I guess it's safe to say that the gloves is off. And no matter what happens, I want you to know that no love is lost. That'll make you a good leader just because you was the boss. I pray we can find a way, cause right now we like two brothers lost. I kept it tall when I was in the public eye. I'm just trying to live now, so I had to let all my grudges die. We done lost so many niggas, I wish that I could just hug the sky. I could take it back to 97 on a day you know that blood had died. Shit, that's why I got it tatted on my arm. We better spend that money now, cause that shit ain't gonna matter when we gone. Don't worry about the rain, just worry about how you gonna weather the storm. Cause when it's your time to shine, you gotta be ready to perform. I work better when I got my back against the wall. I'm still setting them trends, had to put some more plaques against my wall. But when you playing in this game, you gonna have some accidents and you fall. But I